Thank you for turning to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at another faction from the Megatraveller Rebellion. Margaret, Emperor Strephon's first cousin once removed. Margaret felt she had a claim on the throne. She was an alternate choice to Lucan. What could go wrong? We're going to take a look at Margaret's claim and her standing. And did she have a legitimate claim? Did she have a chance of taking the throne? It was an interesting way that Margaret went about trying to take the throne, and it's one that, as a reader, it appealed to me. And when as you read these, you pick sides. Who would you end up going with? And the obvious choice is Archduke Norris, behind the claw, and the Spinward Marches. But Margaret would be my other choice, and I'm going to explain why as I go through the video. Also, subscribers, please. The channel is growing very well. I want to continue it growing to keep it going. That's been my motto for a long time now. I would just want to see this thing just blow the doors off. Also, I have a Patreon, and I do need the support to help the channel go. So if you can take a look at that, if there's anything you can do, even on a 1-month basis, I have 6 or 7 videos on there now that are rewards for the lowest patron standing. So it's not a bunch. Anything like that would be great. If there's any way you can help out, I would really appreciate it. But back to the important stuff, the rebellion rocking the Imperium. And we're going to take a look at Margaret's faction today on page 121. The Rebellion Sourcebook for Megatraveller. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for this. I've said why in other videos. Also, one other quick thing before I forget, I didn't mention it at the open, but Jump Point 2 is on its way. We're going to be doing Jump Point 2 in the southwest suburbs of Chicago. It'll be sometime in mid-August. I have the venue confirmed. I don't have the date confirmed yet. And I made an agreement with the venue that I would not announce the venue until we had a firm date. That date will be coming sometime in mid-July. So I'm going to mention it frequently on the channel. And hopefully folks can join us. I will be running Traveller, Mongoose Traveller 2nd edition for 6 to 8 players. And my son Adam is going to be running AD&D for 6 to 8 players. He'll be running 4th to 6th. Characters will be provided for both games. And also I'm putting a call out to other GMs. If there's any interest in running something, please contact me, and we'll try to make space for it. So we're always interested in more GMs. And honestly, if there's enough GMs that I get to be a player, I'm all for it. Back to the point at hand, the Rebellion Sourcebook. Today we're going to take a look at Margaret's faction. I've enjoyed going back and revisiting the Rebellion. I liked the Rebellion at the start, simply because it gave us a lot of new stuff. It kind of shook the Traveller universe a little bit. You didn't have to play the Rebellion if you didn't want to. My campaign when the Rebellion started was behind the claw in the Spinward Marches. The Marches don't get all that impacted by the Rebellion. I mean, overall, yeah, but not in the immediate way. So it was not a bad way to run it. This is my damaged copy. Margaret's faction is here in Massilla sector. She is just rimward of the core of where Lucan is. So she's not in a great physical place. But we're going to take a look at her claim to the throne. Margaret, supported by moderates in the Moot, has established a base of power in her own Massilla sector. So here we have Margaret. Margaret represents the moderate forces of the Imperium. Lucan's ascension to the throne happened too fast, without consultation of the nobles, and without proper analysis of the changes or charges of misconduct leveled against the prince. Many nobles naturally grumbled and talked of supporting an alternative candidate. Once Lucan was actually on the throne and giving orders, more nobles rallied to the moderate cause. Lucan's haste in taking the throne was criticized by Duke Simer of Ushra, who added that under the circumstances, Lucan would require approval by the Moot before becoming emperor. Lucan issued an order dissolving the Moot for 1 year. Duke Simer protested. The order is invalid. Lucan placed Simer under house arrest. We don't find out what happened to him. I don't remember his fate, but I can imagine it wasn't a pleasant one or that long in coming. Nobles, seeing discretion as the better part of valor, avoided the Moot the next day, and the Moot failed to convene due to lack of quorum. It never convened again. Those nobles who could decide the time had come to return, had decided the time had come to return to their fiefs. Lucan was left with control of capital. Now, there is an argument to be said that Lucan by having all the offices of the Imperium of the Emperor, having the armed forces of the Emperor, having the throne of the Emperor, is Emperor. And yes, that's completely valid. Margaret simply represents another faction that is not declaring for Lucan. Moderates were gaining ground. The search for an alternative heir to the throne turned up in Margaret. Margaret being a first cousin once removed of the slain Emperor Strephon. Many conceded that her claim was subordinate to that of Lucan, but if Lucan should die or be dethroned, Margaret could legitimately succeed him, and the moot and clear conscience could approve the action. So Margaret's not really actively fighting for the throne. She's just kind of standing there saying, hey, I'm a good alternative to Lucan. Margaret's faction. Lucan issued an order for Margaret's arrest, but she had already left her estates in Delphi. The arrest order produced even more support for Margaret as a pretender. By the time Margaret had arrived in Delphi, she had a strong base of power with support from nobles in all parts of the Imperium. The faction's name is simply Margaret. They're referred to as Margaret's forces, Margaret's fleets, Margaret's faction, or simply Margaret. Alternative designations include the pretender and the empress. The leader is Margaret. She is the personal leader of the rebellion. She has extensive assistance from a staff of nobles and experts who advise her on possible actions and plan out her faction's operations. All policy decisions are decided by her personally, but she leaves their execution to staff and subordinates. Her territory is, her noble fief is located in Delphi sector, and as Duchess of the Imperium, she already has extensive political power in the region. Her estates, located at Anaxius, deep in the Delphi Rift, are virtually unapproachable to most naval operations, making her base of operations safe and secure. Most of the sector declared itself for Margaret by mid-1117, the assassination happening in mid-1116, and several subsectors in the neighboring Massilia sector. I stated at the top she's from Massilia. She has influence in Massilia, but she's in Delphi. Constituents. Beyond Margaret's territorial subjects, she claims a sizable portion of the moderate nobles who agree with her philosophy. The fact that Margaret's territory is so close to the capital and its territories provides a steady stream of defectors fed up with Lucan. So she's a ready place for people to run if they're afraid of Lucan or just don't like the way things are working out. I personally liked Margaret's ideology. It was a return to the stability of the classic Imperium. She represents the classic values of the Imperium. The forces that support her fervently wish the clock could be turned back and the chaos of the rebellion could be totally avoided. In recent years, the Imperium was run as efficient, well-run government, encouraged trade, industry, exploration, and stability. Large corporations were especially prosperous under the Empire's protection. The rebellion changed all that, shifting the very foundation of profitable business into unstable sand. Margaret is the area where business can continue to thrive. Margaret says, hey, you know what? I'm going to show that I am a bastion of how the Imperium should be run. You can come here, you can do business, you can trade, and you'll make your profits, and the war will not come here. Margaret has some fleets at her call, as well as the Rift to protect her, so Margaret is able to actually kind of hold off Lucan. Lucan is not really focusing on Margaret because he's more concerned with Dolinar anyway. So Margaret just is able to kind of do her own thing at this point during the rebellion. I thought that was kind of neat. Margaret's symbol. In 1031, Paolo III ascended the throne as emperor. One of his first acts was to award a duchy in Delphi sector to his brother Prince Asan. Most analysts agree this move was made to remove Asan as possible competition for the throne. When Prince Asan almost married Marianne, the daughter of the Delphi senior duke, I think they mean married, he established his family line as the senior one in the sector. To commemorate the marriage and to establish it as distinct from the imperial family, he adopted a bird of prey symbol. Margaret has used the symbol to represent her faction, and that's the bird of prey right down there. To Carolines. This is interesting. Sweet to Carolines. Da, da, da. Margaret is married to Count Blaine Trulla Tucara, one of the three sons in the upper reaches of management for the imperial spanning to Carolines. The marriage provided Margaret with a loving husband, devoted friend before the assassination of Strephon. The fact that much of the power of Tucara could be placed in Margaret's control provided her with additional support when it became apparent that she was a pretender to the throne of the Imperium. Margaret, seeing the assassinations of Strephon and Varian understood enough history to realize that a new long night was a definite possibility. She knew her own personal and family fortunes, her reputation in her home territories, and her experience with economic management could together be applied to delaying or avoiding such a catastrophe. Instead of raising howling war fleets to conquer territory, Margaret is emphasizing the imperial infrastructure. She's a transportation fan. She wants to keep the supplies flowing. She wants to keep trade flowing. She wants to keep money coming in and going out in her area. She wants to keep it as a smaller version of the imperium that was before the assassination. And that's actually kind of a very laudable idea. Unfortunately, it's, I think, a little naive, but that was one of the reasons why when I was picking a faction that I would, if I was in this, who would I go with? Margaret was one of the ones I actually ended up landing in. Margaret sees military ships as necessary, but she uses them more as convoy and transport fleets through danger spots and choke points. War fleets, she feels, are useless. They destroy more than they could ever save, and Margaret's forces are committed to saving lives and worlds. She intends to be a threat to no one. She seeks to build an island of stability where the mail still goes through. Her plan is to show the other participants in the rebellion that a healthy, well-managed economy is a far greater treasure than the throne of the Imperium. She talks a lot about input-output structures and payoff matrices. Delano killed Strephon, but what did he really gain? And what did the peoples of the Imperium gain? Margaret is going to manage her territory and show everyone else that nurturing a realm is a greater task with greater rewards than is conquering it. Again, a laudable strategy. This section goes on to say that Margaret hopes that she'll be viewed as the Empress. Once her area is shown to be stable and secure, and people are longing for that, they're hoping that enough will depose Lucan, or Lucan will just perish, and that there will be a general acclaim to bring her and sweep her onto the throne. She is not really trying to make military gains, she's just trying to maintain her borders. Margaret, unfortunately, undervalues and underutilizes the intelligence assets. Spying is avoided. Instead, she careful search of public records, births, deaths, arrests, conviction statistics, letters written to district nobles in protest, and so on, is sufficient to find and track trends. Actually, it's not. That's incredibly naive that she thinks she could track basically a stock market or track a rebellion like a stock market. Margaret is unquestionably competent when it comes to managing an economy, but she is somewhat nearsighted. She sees the trees, but only in economics can she see the forest. In some essentially irrational event creates a disruption, a religious upheaval, a political schism, or something else, she'll be slow and imprecise in reacting. Margaret is proceeding slowly and diplomatically in absorbing former imperial assets. She's bringing starports under her control and taking over naval and scout bases. She's working to make her territories survive the rebellion. If she can do things right, they may well even come out on top. So it's an interesting take. Margaret is not actually a fighting faction. She's just another choice. If you're looking for somewhere to try to ride out all the chaos that is the rebellion, Margaret's trying to offer an island of stability. Unfortunately, as I said at the top, Margaret's particular island is surrounded by instability. Sitting right here in Delphi, I mean, it's nice that she's got the rift at her back, but she's got a lot of action going down in the Solomani Confederation, and then, of course, she's got Delano over here and Lucan. So there's a lot of problems with where Margaret is and her positioning. Margaret's take is an interesting one, though, to bring back the glory days, continue the glory days, and stave off another long night. I like that idea. Unfortunately, as we all know, we never really got to see a lot of this stuff play out. Game Designers Workshop switched over to Traveller of the New Era in 1993. That advanced the storyline by about 70 years. And all we found out about all these various factions and things was that they felt a virus. We don't really know what happened to individuals. And I was always a little disappointed by that. And I know as the GM, I can go ahead and I can make whatever story I want to make. But I would have liked to have seen an official end rather than just shifting to Traveller of the New Era, which was fine for what it was doing. But I would have liked to have seen an ending to what we had been living since 1987. But that's it. That's the next chapter in the Rebellion. I have some coming up where I'll be able to cover 2 factions at least in one video, because some of these factions are pretty small, and honestly, I hesitate to even call them factions. But they're definitely points of contention for Lucan and any other pretender to the throne to deal with. So that's all I've got today from page 121. Please let me know what you thought. Like and subscribe to the video if you would, and I'll see you next time.